Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel, and that is the R in the RK Stumblingbear, and I'm a reader and a writer. And I'm back today to kind of celebrate my Booktube birthday. April is my birthday month, my anniversary for joining Booktube, and I've been on here 5 years now. Now, I don't have any tag questions this year. I thought it would be more interesting just to kind of do a reflection. So I started my channel in April of 2020. That is very auspicious because a lot of people were starting Booktube channels at that time because they were at home in quarantine. I was also at home, but I was working still. My job was able to go to remote, and I didn't decide to do Booktube at that time. I had actually decided to do it a few months earlier. So my YouTube journey actually started before my first video. In the fall, winter of 2019, I was feeling like I hadn't been reading as much as I used to and was lamenting that. And I'd heard about readathons because, my library has a couple. And I started looking online for one specifically about sci-fi, and I found some. That led me to a booktuber, which unfortunately I don't remember that channel's name. And that channel went defunct pretty soon after I found them, even though they had been on for a while. So I ran my own readathon sci-fi version just for 2 weeks, kind of over my Christmas holiday break time period, and remembered how much I loved reading. And then, started following other booktubers at that point in time. That's also when I found G over Book Roast because her Harry Potter readathon had been recommended. That is now a defunct readathon for many reasons. G now runs the Magical Readathon, which is actually happening here in the month of April. So it's just a very fun readathon that she has created where you get to be someone in a magical world with some sort of magical powers that you get to decide, kind of D&D style. A lot of fun. I found G's videos at that time, at the beginning of 2019, and especially going into 2020, very relaxing. I find that G is just so authentic that when I was feeling stressed about other things, I would watch one of her videos, and I would just kind of feel my anxiety bleed away. And I continued watching because also G read science fiction. G's a wide reader, so G reads science fiction, fantasy, contemporary, romance, a lot of things. But the YouTube algorithm at this time wanted to show me contemporary and YA people. And so at the beginning of 2020, I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, where's my sci-fi? Would every once in a while start showing me more people with fantasy, but I'm really like, where's my sci-fi? Where are my space battles? Where are my big issues? Where are those robots? That's what I really like to read about a lot of the time. And I wasn't finding it because of how the YouTube algorithm works when you're looking at things and you're new. And so I decided in 2020, thinking there was a vacuum of people who were talking about science fiction, that I should start my own channel and start talking about it. And while I had a degree in film and media studies, I had always wanted to be behind the camera, not in front of it. And so I kind of had to work through my fear of talking to a camera, feeling dumb sometimes talking to a camera, which I think is a very relatable experience for a lot of people when they are starting any type of YouTube channel or book talk or TikTok or Instagram reels, whatever. So I watched people's new booktube newbie things, and in April decided to jump in. And like I said, at that time, a ton of people jumped in. So watching the booktube newbie was a lot of new videos at the same time. And still, the algorithm is showing more people are talking about contemporary books or romance or young adult, which are not really what I read. I did find channels like Haley and Bookland that I really enjoyed. And then I started getting introduced to like Murphy Napier and Daniel Green. So these are big name channels, but still nothing that specifically is like sci-fi niche. You know, I feel like while Daniel Green and Murphy Napier do read sci-fi, they're more fantasy directed. Or at least what I see most on through their content is the fantasy. Which is okay though, because I like fantasy. I mean, I have a whole shelf of fantasy books that I want to read. I like fantasy, but I was also looking for those sci-fis. So started making my own videos, experimented, didn't really know what I was looking for or what I wanted to do. At that time in my life, I didn't have a lot of money, so I knew I wasn't going to be doing book haul videos because I wasn't going to be buying a whole bunch of books. And I hadn't thought of the concept of library hauls, which I guess I could. As a mood reader, I get lots of library books out at a time, and then maybe one or two of them get read before they all go back. That is how I still am today, actually. So like I said, I started experimenting and trying out different content of what I wanted to do. And I remember being very proud of a video where I talked about Space Cadet by Robert Heinlein, which is one of my favorite books ever. There's a great nostalgia because it was one of the gateways for me into science fiction. I had found it on my dad's shelf. That review video, which I don't think is very good, has ended up being evergreen. Every few months, I will get a comment about it because Heinlein is a well-known author. I still have it up. If you're wanting to go watch it, you don't really have to. Like I said, I don't think it's the best quality, but it does show you where I was at the beginning of my journey, if you're curious. So from there, I just, started chatting with other booktubers. I mean, really, if you want to build community, you have to be part of other people's community, is what I have found. And so I started, talking to people who were reading similar things. Channels like Made Between the Pages. Taylor is a big fantasy reader, and I like that she also highlights indie authors. I think she was one of the first people I saw doing that before I had ever even heard of Spiffbo, which is the self-published fantasy blog-off competition, if you have never heard of it. I also found Taylor interesting because she lives in Japan, and at the time my sister lived in Japan. Totally other side of the country, but it was still kind of fun to get to see some Japanese life. So at this point, I'm a few months in, and then the algorithm is now starting to show me more sci-fi channels like Sci-Fi and Sarcasm, Book Invasion, Tori Morrow, and I'm like, where were all of these before I started? Though to be fair, if I had seen these channels before I started, I might never have started my own channel. And I might never have made the friends that I've made. Kristen L at SFF Reader, who was very much focused on reading books that were nominated for awards, like the big awards, like the Nebulas, Locust, Fantasy, Hugos. And we had some crossover because I also like reading the nominees for the Nebulas and Hugos. Started talking. And then I started joining in on more readathons. That is something that can be very seductive when you are on Booktube, especially if you don't realize how your own reading habits are. A lot of people will get caught up in all the readathon stuff, and then they feel overwhelmed and like they have lost their own desire to read. I never had that happen to me because I knew from the beginning about how fast I read. And like I said, I was still working full-time. I was actually working on a master's at the time as well. So I knew realistically how much time I had to read and knew I wasn't ever going to be someone who, I read 30 books this month or anything like that. I knew like 4 is my average. And even today, 4 a month is a pretty good average. If we're talking novels, if you're throwing in novellas or manga, that will boost that number, but novel-wise, usually 3 to 4 is my average. And I found that there were just many fun communities around these readathons. I mean, there were some chill ones that are just like, hey, here's my readathon, participate if you want to do it. Don't, that's cool. And then there are other ones who had Discord groups, and they were doing reading sprints. And I know that's where I found like David Wiley, because through the, I even forget what it's called. One of the readathons that I decided I really wanted to do was Space Opera September, because space opera is my favorite sci-fi niche. And really, like, how much you get out of these communities is based off of how much you put in. And the year I started to do the Space Opera September, they did a prompt that you had to read some books with a reading buddy. And I love reading sci-fi. My dad likes sci-fi, but we don't necessarily like the same sci-fi, I have found. If I'm reading older sci-fi, he's all on board with me. If it's newer sci-fi, he doesn't really like it. So I'm trying to read newer sci-fi, and with the reading buddy challenge that the Space Opera September did, I put myself out there. I said, hey, these are the books that I am planning to read for Space Opera September. Anybody else want to? And I had 4 people. I had set up 4 buddy reads. And I knew I was going on vacation for 2 weeks. I knew I had told my husband, I'm like, I get that we'll be visiting my mother-in-law, but I'm going to do a lot of reading because this is my break. And I did. I had chunky books. So I just had set up 4 buddy reads, and I think 3 went through. And one of the people I found was David Wiley. He didn't come out and say that he had a channel, but I saw just on his Discord profile that he had a channel. And so then I was like, oh, hey. Went and looked at that, and I was like, he does some interesting things. I realized that I really like more hybrid channels because he also is an indie author. So I found that I just liked meeting people who write and read and talk about both. One of my goals when I started my channel was also to write and to also put forth content where I talk about my writing. And then I find that when I talk about my writing, I then don't want to write. So that section hasn't worked out, but I really turned my focus on books. However, I did meet a lot of AuthorTube friends that I still really enjoy their content, where they're talking about writing. And there's different events throughout the year, writing relays that I like to participate in and have those connections. Through that time, then I also signed up to be a beta reader for a couple of people I met on AuthorTube. And that was a really fun experience. I'm a huge reader of, fantasy and sci-fi. And then getting to beta read, give reader thoughts and opinions on other people's works, let me realize that I know my genres that I read. I know what is normal and what is happening. So then I can actually make good commentary on these books because I know the tropes. I know what I prefer, and I know what I like best, but I can also realize that the direction the author's going might not necessarily be to my taste. But then in the end, as this is more of a booktube channel now, when I read those books and they get published, I can say, hey, this is the audience that will like this book. You want romance and ice dragons? Pick up St. Houston's series that she is currently working on. The first one of the series, well, the first 3 books are going to be kind of, you can read them in any order, but the first one that I have read is A Curse of Scales and Feathers. That was really fun getting to beta read and be part of that process. I also, when Kristinelle at SFF Reader decided she wanted to do a readathon, she put together new release-a-thon, and she asked who was interested. And even though I'm a baby channel, don't have a lot of subscribers, I was like, ooh, I want to, which then allowed me to get to know Rhea from the Bookfinch and Angela from Science Literature Alliance and Shannon from That's So Poe, meeting more people who talk about science fiction. And then getting to participate in that readathon helped me become aware of the self-published science fiction contest, or SpecFest, or Space, whatever it's called. I know that's horrible that I'm saying whatever, but I got to become a judge and be on Book Invasion's judging team in year 2, and then in year 3, and now I'm judging again, and I'm on team ground control to Major Tom for the 4th year of Specfus. Getting to read more indie sci-fi that I would not have even been aware of 5 years ago. So this channel has helped me grow as a reader, helped me broaden what I'm reading, where I'm finding books. I mean, yeah, you'll hear of all the famous ones, the ones that are like super new, such as A Drop of Corruption, or really popular like Fourth Wing. I read those. But also getting to read books like You're Celestially by Al Hess, which is a current semi-finalist for the self-published science fiction contest. I would not have known about this book except for what I participate in. So over the 5 years, I don't regret the decisions I have made or the activities I've participated in or the books that I have read, because I have had an amazing time doing this. And even getting to talk to you and get to know more of you guys in the community, meeting more people from more channels, Booktube and AuthorTube, getting to find what my tastes are in reading, and that I know my genres very well, the ones that I love reading. I think recently I had reached 200 subscribers on this channel, which from a growth standpoint, some people would say, oh wow, it took you 5 years to hit 200 subscribers, but that was never really one of my goals. And planning for this channel, I had done research that talked about don't expect fast growth, that's a fluke. And while everybody was jumping on at the same time, again, I was lost in that algorithm because I was looking at the wrong channels. I wasn't finding the sci-fi fantasy niches that I do have today. Nothing wrong with those other channels. Really enjoyed them, enjoyed getting to know those personalities. Sad that a lot of them are no longer active. But, you know, 2020 was a different world. I know in the future I will continue to join readathons, and I will continue to find new things to be involved in the community, because this is something I enjoy. And that really comes down to the reason why after 5 years I am still doing this. I realize that I'm not someone who has a regular posting schedule, but when I get to sit down and talk to the camera and talk about the books I'm reading and what I'm loving, I enjoy getting to put that content out there and interacting with those who want to interact back. I realize that not everybody will watch a video entirely, not everyone is going to leave a comment, but I still hope that what I am putting out, you are finding beneficial, that it maybe sparks your interest, especially if I keep repeating a book that you might not have originally thought you wanted to read, and then you try it and you end up loving it. That would be amazing. So this channel for me is not about the subscriber count, it's about the connections to the community of other readers and writers, other booktubers. So I thank you all for joining me in 5 years on this journey. Whether you were with me from the beginning or you've only met me recently, I love getting to talk to you about the books I'm reading. And I hope that you will talk to me about the books that you were reading as well. Thank you, and have a good day.